They say old people lose their minds. That's what everyone told me when I started talking. My kids, the staff, even the doctors. Dad's just confused. Ed's having episodes. But here's what no one could explain. Why did 5 people die in 60 days? Why did the nurses never flinch? And why every single night did something walk these halls that wasn't human? My name is Ed Grayson. I'm 81 years old. I'm a former Air Force combat controller, a retired lapped officer. I have spent my entire life staring danger in the face, and nothing has ever terrified me like what lives inside Bright Shades nursing home. I'm going to die soon. I know that. I've known it for a while. At 81, you stop lying to yourself about the calendar. What I didn't know, what none of us knew when we moved in, was how we'd die. Or what would be doing the killing. My name is Ed Grayson. 3 kids, Evan, Caleb, and my daughter, 7 grandchildren. A lifetime of service, Air Force combat control, then 20 years on the lapped. I've been shot at. I've pulled people out of burning wreckage. I have held the hands of dying men in conditions that would break most people in half. None of that prepared me for this place. My kids thought Bright Shades was a gift. Good nurses, mountain views, activities, a community, somewhere Dad could spend his final years without being a burden. I didn't argue. After my wife passed, the silence in the house had become its own kind of punishment. So I packed what I needed and I moved in. I noticed the wrongness within a week. Her name was Margaret. 70s, sharp eyes. The kind of woman who had clearly run entire households with one hand tied behind her back. She sat down across from me at breakfast on my 3rd day, looked me dead in the eyes and said, quietly, seriously, "When it comes at night, lay still. Keep your eyes closed. Do not make a sound." I laughed. I actually laughed. I wasn't laughing by the 3rd night. I woke up at 2 a.m. to the sound of footsteps in the hallway, slow, heavy, deliberate. Not a nurse doing rounds. This was something else. Something that moved with the kind of patience that belongs to a predator. The floorboards creaked under its weight as it moved past door after door. It stopped somewhere down the hall. A door opened. Then silence. In the morning, they told us Edith had passed in her sleep. Natural causes, they said. I looked at Margaret. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. I tried to rationalize it. Old building, old bones, my mind playing tricks. I'd read about how grief can distort perception. Losing my wife, leaving my home, starting over at 81 in a stranger's building. It made sense that my mind might fracture a little at the edges. Then it came back the next night. This time it stopped outside the room next to mine. I could hear my neighbor, a woman I'd barely met, crying softly through the wall. Then the footsteps paused. The knob turned. The door opened. The crying stopped. There was no scream, no struggle. Just nothing. A silence that felt thick and wrong, like the air had been replaced with something heavier. She was gone by morning. Natural causes, they said again. I cornered Margaret after breakfast. I was done being polite about it. "What is it?" I demanded. She looked around the room, checked for nurses, checked the hallway, checked the corners, and then she leaned in close enough that I could smell her coffee. "You'll see it," she whispered. "One of these days you will." That's not an answer. We can't talk about it here. A nurse swept past our table right on cue, all warmth and professional cheer. "Everyone doing all right over here?" Margaret smiled up at her like we were discussing the weather. The nurse moved on. Margaret watched her go. Then she told me everything. It comes every night. It has been coming for longer than anyone currently living at Bright Shades can remember. It feeds not on flesh, not on blood, but on something older and more essential. Energy. Life force. The thing that animates a person from the inside. It drains you slowly, a little at a time, the way a slow leak drains a tire. You don't notice it happening until one morning you simply can't get out of bed, and then one night it comes back and takes the rest. "How long has this been going on?" I asked. Margaret shook her head. Since before I got here, they replace us when it's finished. New residents, same building, same thing. And the nurses, she glanced toward the hallway, they know. Every one of them, they stay out of its way. They don't report the deaths right. They keep the families calm and confused and convince everyone it's natural. She paused. Even that new one, Jillian. She seems genuine, but she'll fall in line. They always do. An old man at the table behind us, Bill, broad-shouldered even in his 80s, voice like gravel, leaned over without turning around. "Don't fight it when it comes," he said quietly. "Makes it worse. 2 weeks passed, not every night, but most nights. And every morning the evidence. Someone more exhausted than the night before, someone not getting out of bed, someone gone." The newer nurse, Jillian, lost her smile. She was still professional. Still kind, but her eyes had changed. That particular light that comes from believing the world is mostly good had simply gone out, just like Margaret said it would. Then it came for me. I was awake when it arrived. I don't know why, instinct maybe. Some combat reflex from decades ago that never fully powered down. I heard the footsteps stop at my door. I felt the knob turn. And then I opened my eyes. It was tall. Its head grazed the top of the doorframe. Thin as a shadow and shaped like one, humanoid only in the loosest sense. The kind of shape your mind forces onto something that doesn't quite have one. It moved across the room without sound, without rushing. Its eyes, if you could call them that, were two faint points of cold light in the dark. I didn't scream. Bill's advice held. It loomed over my bed, extended its hands, long, far too long, and placed them over my face and throat. Its skin was cold and dry and deeply, wrongly wrinkled, like something that had lived far too long in darkness. It exhaled that same ragged, wheezing breath Margaret had described, the sound of something ancient expelling the life it had just taken. Then it took mine. The sensation is impossible to fully describe. The closest I can get, imagine the feeling of being strangled and violently ill at the exact same moment, while something reaches through your sternum and pulls. Not pain exactly, extraction. Like being slowly emptied. I tried to grab its wrist, I touched it, I felt it, it didn't even notice. When it finally released me and left, door closing softly behind it, as though it had simply stepped out for air, I lay in the dark and stared at the ceiling and tried to remember who I used to be. Technical Sergeant Ed Grayson, Air Force Combat Control. Officer Ed Grayson lapped. I had been those men, strong, capable, armed with training and authority and the absolute certainty that problems could be solved if you came at them the right way. Those men felt very far away. I was sick for 3 days. I called Evan, my oldest, the cop. I told him everything, the nurses, the deaths, the creature, the footsteps, Margaret's warnings. I heard the careful pause of a trained investigator deciding how to handle a difficult conversation. "What do you want me to look into?" he asked. "Everything. Complaints, deaths. Anything off about that place." He came back a week later. "Dad, there's nothing there. The place is clean. One complaint about nurses ignoring illness a year ago, nothing came of it." That's all I could find. That's not possible. I'm not saying I don't believe you. I'm just saying I can't find it. The records were clean. Of course they were. Whatever arrangement existed between this place and whatever lived inside it had been running long enough to scrub its own tracks. I sat with my phone in my lap after we hung up and watched a shadow step away from my door. It had been listening. That night it came back angrier. I know that sounds like projection. How do you read the mood of something without a face? But I felt it in the way it entered the room. Faster, more direct. It grabbed my throat and turned my head toward it, forcing me to look into those pale, lightless eyes. It took more this time. I could feel the difference. After I lay there barely able to breathe, and I understood something clearly for the first time. It wasn't going to stop. Margaret died on a Tuesday. I heard the family being brought in. The quiet devastation of people who didn't know what they were actually grieving, who thought they'd simply lost a mother to old age and poor health. I sat at breakfast and looked at her empty chair and felt something I hadn't felt since the worst days on the job. Genuine, consuming helplessness. My one friend in this place. The only person here who had fully understood. That night, I pushed my wheelchair in front of the door, wedged the shelf against it, positioned the lamp where I could grab it. I was a weak old man in a nursing home, I knew that, but I had made a decision. If it was going to finish me, it was going to have to work for it. It came faster than usual. The door fought. The wheelchair rattled. It grunted, an actual sound of frustration from whatever passed for a throat in that thing, and then it muscled through, knocking the shelf aside, and crossed the room in 3 steps and was on top of me before I could do anything useful with the lamp. It fed harder than it ever had. I tried to tear at its skin. I managed to grip something cold, dry, impossibly tough and pulled. Nothing. It finished and stepped back and made a series of sounds that I can only describe as laughter. Then it patted my cheek, like I was a child, like I was amusing. It closed the door gently on its way out. I don't know how many days have passed since then. I'm writing this by hand because I don't trust the phones anymore. I think it can hear through them. I think it's known about Evan's search from the beginning. Jillian, if you find this, I need you to listen carefully. I've watched you. I know you're different. I've seen the guilt in your face when you walk past certain rooms, when you sign off on certain reports. You know something is wrong. You're not like the others. Not yet. So please, get this letter out. Don't tell anyone in this building. Don't mention it to the other nurses. Just get it out and let the world read it. To my kids, Evan, Caleb, and my girl, I love you more than I've ever been able to say right. You have every reason to doubt what I've written here. I would too. But I spent 30 years reading crime scenes, and I know what evidence looks like, and I know what I've seen. There is something living in this nursing home. It feeds on the elderly. The staff knows and they're protecting it. Or it's protecting them, I'm still not sure which. And the records will show nothing because whatever system keeps this place running has had a very long time to make sure they don't. Get us out. Get us all out. It's in the hallway again. I can hear the floorboards. I'm not going to fight this time. I'm too tired and it doesn't matter, and I want to spend whatever energy I have left finishing this letter instead. Whatever happens, happens. But I'm asking you, whoever you are, wherever you are reading this right now, don't let it happen to someone else. Ed Grayson, resident, Bright Shades Nursing Home, Room 14. The letter was found tucked beneath the mattress of Room 14, following the death of Edward Grayson, 81. From what staff described as natural causes, Nurse Jillian Marsh resigned 3 days later without explanation. No investigation was open. Bright Shades Nursing Home remains fully operational.